Welcome back to Walk in the Park, a podcast where we meet with startup founders to get to know their founder journeys while taking a walk outside. Today we are in Rome and going to meet with Marta, co-founder of Ideal Brand. We'll get to know her journey about how she has been leading communications in smaller companies and then scale-ups at the big companies into becoming a tech entrepreneur. Put your headsets on and join us for a walk. Welcome to Walk in the Park.
Looking forward to this experience.
Yes, me too. And we are in Rome in front of Colosseum today, and we are meeting with Marta, co-founder of Ideal Brand. And I'm looking forward to get to know you better, and we're going to talk about your transition from a normal world to becoming an entrepreneur and several businesses, and your background and how things happen in your life and how you make decisions. Okay, so let's walk.
Let's go for a walk.
So my first question is usually, how often do you actually have walk and talks?
You know, I actually adopted the walk and talk tradition during COVID, during the lockdown, when obviously I wanted to stay in touch with my team and we had regular meetings, Zoom calls. And at some point I realized, well, why sit at my desk and we can have exact same conversation while walking. So I would invite my team members to actually go for a walk with me. And I continue this even after COVID because I realized that there is just something so constructive about having a conversation, especially if you're having a one-to-one, especially if you have to give feedback. It really allows, a very nice engagement and a different quality of a conversation. And so I oftentimes do that. I just ask my team members to get out of the office and go for a walk.
So what do they think about that?
I mean, in the beginning they were kind of, teasing me about it, but I think many of them actually realize it's great. It's great. I mean, today we cannot maybe feel this because the sky is gray, but imagine that in Rome, 9 out of 10 days of the year, your sky is perfectly blue and sunny. And so I think it also gives people energy and perspective to be able to, get out of the office and out of their comfort zone.
Tell us a bit more about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm a founder, and this is kind of my identity these days, but I have many identities. I'm a founder, I'm a mother, I'm an international person that's lived, different places in the world, and so I've kind of gathered, many experiences. I have been on entrepreneurial journeys for 10 years now, initially as an advisor, as a member of the board for different startups. But really, I understood very, very quickly that, I wanted to be much more involved. And so I initially started my journey as a co-founder of Car Planner. And that was really a very formative experience. And in 2018, I started thinking about Ideal Brand and then started the journey there as a founder.
Before that, you've been doing, you said you were advisor for different companies. You were not a founder yourself. You were
not yet.
On the advisor
the first
side.
few years, exactly.
So that was communication type of services for startups and scale-ups.
Exactly. Positioning, communication, fundraising, advising the CEO on kind of go-to-market strategies, kind of getting my hands dirty in any way I could, trying to have impact in any way I could.
So what inspired you to start a company first time, the Car Planner then?
So I come, so you mentioned communication. I come from communication background. And so I spent, the first years of my career helping large corporate companies craft their messaging. And that was very, very exciting, especially, working my first few years working out of New York. So you can imagine the pace. After my MBA, I joined Dell because I wanted to kind of get into more data-driven environment. I really felt that communication by itself, it wasn't giving me the kind of satisfaction, I think, that I was aiming for. I really needed more of a data-driven approach. And so Dell was a great learning ground because the company is extremely known for its data-driven, marketing. So I spent 7 years there. I was in London. Yeah, I was in London. The idea initially around Car Planner was really about combining the communication, so how do we engage customers through, innovative, let's say, strategies, and how do we can then create value for in this case, automakers, because car planners positioning is really about helping automakers attract and attract customers. Combine, the communication strategies and data-driven approaches and provide value for the automakers. And that was really kind of the first, let's say, go-to-market approach of what the company did.
So why you've chosen that industry?
The reason is really about spotting opportunities in the traditional, auto industry hasn't really been disrupted. There's always been a traditional sales model which involved dealers, traditional marketing strategies, and I really thought that the industry has, a lot of potential for a more personalized engagement with prospects. And that's really where the drive came from, really wanting to kind of disrupt an industry that really needed new solutions.
So the idea for Ideal Rent, was it a natural kind of transformation from what you've been doing at Car Planner? So you just pivoted it in a way?
It wasn't a pivot. So, Ideal Rent it was born out of Car Planner experience. But it was also born, when we started building Ideal Rent, we initially started with a B2C model, a B2C digital broker. And we started, generating leads, we started engaging customers, generating sales. And what we realized very quickly was that
We're going here?
we were very good at generating online experiences and generating interest, but the conversions were happening offline. And when we started digging into the data, we understood why, and we understood that in markets like Italy, for example, people still prefer a traditional distribution model where they can go to their trusted agent, where they can go to a trusted dealer, when they can actually physically go to, a service point or sales. And that was really the aha moment, because we realized that this is really what we need to be looking at. We need to be actually looking to disrupt and innovate the physical offline sales channel, because this is really where none of the digitalization has really come yet. And so in 2020 we made the pivot, and there was a real pivot from B2C to B2B. And since 2020, Ideal has been exclusively focused on B2B and on enabling businesses to set up mobility sales.
Because it is around car subscription services, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It is a kind of new market in a way, but fast growing globally,
it's fast
right?
growing. Across Europe already 1 in 4 cars are no longer bought, but used as a service. So this can actually mean car subscriptions, it can mean long-term rental, but basically it means that you pay a monthly fee for a car that's fully serviced. So it includes insurance, it includes maintenance, all the services you might need. And when the contract finishes after an average of 3 years, you can change into a new car. So this is actually also very interesting because it's helping to accelerate the shift to electric mobility, which I think is a very important factor these days. A lot of people are very keen to be more sustainable. But many people are reluctant. You live in Norway, so of course, that's the leader globally, I think, in terms of adoption of electric mobility. So it's maybe different there. But in many other countries, people are reluctant to buy an electric vehicle, even if there are great incentives from governments, because, they don't know what the state of technology is going to be like when they have to sell the car, what the residual value is going to be. So there's a lot of, uncertainty about it. But by choosing an electric car through a car subscription or long-term rental, they can achieve their objective. They can drive a green car, and they obviously are reducing any of the technology or financial risk when the contract finishes. So already today, more than half of the cars, that are being sold as a long-term rental are electric cars, because it's really we're seeing that shift happening through that kind of mobility platform.
So let us go back to your communication background.
Yes.
How do you think this background helped you on your founder journey now?
I think it absolutely helped, in a sense that, I mean, communication, I think, is everywhere. It's really about how you articulate your vision, is how you communicate to your team, how you define the strategy, and that really can help. Of course, there are many skills as a founder that are required, if you want to be successful. So I think the grit, the resilience, never giving up are probably, ranked even higher than any of the technical competencies. But the communication has definitely been an important part, and also a passion of mine. I encourage the teams to be very conscious of how they communicate. We do workshops sometimes. I'm very passionate about feedback culture.
Inside your company?
Inside the
or
company.
With the customers as well?
Both, but I think it needs to start with us, so especially with the company. And communication is a big part of it because it's how you deliver feedback. It can be very empowering or disempowering, so you should be very careful and considerate of how you craft your message.
Yeah, so how do you do that? What are your tips and tricks on feedback sessions?
I prepare. I think that's really important. I also promote the culture of quick feedback, which doesn't mean instant feedback. So one of the things also I've been coaching my team is this power of pause, because we are working so fast and making decisions really fast, and sometimes people react, might have not had a great day, and they might not react in the most resourceful way. And it's important to recognize it, but it's also important to pause and not react immediately. And so maybe to take, an hour, a day, 2 days to acknowledge, the situation, what has happened, but deal with it, not let it simmer for too long. And that's also a way to avoid conflict over time. Pause has been my own practice. I used to be much more reactive. I'm learning to pause more, to be more thoughtful, and I'm trying to also instill that sort of practice also with the team members.
What other qualities do you think is really important for a leader and a startup founder?
I really have been reading a lot and learning a lot about authentic leadership. I think bringing your best self, but your real self to work. I think it creates credibility with the people around you. A leader doesn't need to have all the answers. Sometimes, the most impactful situation can be when the leader acknowledges not to know the answer and empowers the team to help him or her arrive at the right answer. So I think for me personally, vulnerability is not a weakness, it's really a power. And being authentic is just a value I bring to the office and every single day.
Do you think your team members do the same?
It's taken time, I must admit. It's taken time because I think, a lot of people who maybe have had different working experiences in environments that weren't as understanding, they would have a tendency to, sugarcoat or hide. And it's taken them a while to fully trust. I think that's the right word, the trust that I can even acknowledge a mistake I've made as long as I take full ownership of it, full responsibility. And also take full responsibility for them fixing the mistake. And the head will not roll, metaphorically. So it's taking time. I mean, it's a journey. It's not something that's...
What about people in your team? How do you actually attract right people? You're basically selling the vision in the beginning?
I've been very fortunate because the retention at my company has been very, very high. I was able to attract amazing talent and then also create an environment for them to thrive for a long time. Of course, sometimes, they reach a certain cycle and they have to fly out of the nest. And, I'm the first one to congratulate them on that. But overall, the retention has been high because I think the key for me is really empowerment, is really making everyone feel like they're part of the company, like they're part of the solution, like their contribution is welcome and encouraged. So even if you're joining as an intern, your input is going to be as respected as if you're a company director. Of course, it needs to be backed by data, it needs to be backed by preparation, but I really focus on instilling that sense of accountability and
showing them trust.
Maybe trust
more than they expect from the beginning.
And also, throwing them into the deep end of the pool, as I say, because that's what happened to me. I mean, I was able to grow really quickly in my early career days because I was very fortunate to be working with senior people, and they just threw me in. They said, figure it out. And you have to be given those opportunities to really show what you're made of. And I think, especially young people, they're hungry for those kind of experiences, So we oftentimes push them out of their comfort zone. But I really, really have trust that they'll figure it out. I'm there to coach them, to support them, but they'll figure it out. And they do. Most of the time they do.
Sounds great. Since you mentioned the beginning of your career and the early days when you started working and work with senior people, you've done pretty impressive start in your career since you finished and graduated from the university, changing roles and growing pretty fast. So it seems which qualities helped you to really be able to navigate through this period?
That's a very good question, and I thought about it recently, actually. I think there's kind of two elements. One is the nature and nurture. So I think from a nature perspective, I definitely I always, even as a small kid, I was very independent and always up for challenge. And so, I never refrained from something that was, difficult for me. But I think the nurture, so the environment helped as well. So I think two things come to mind. I mean, my family, my father was an entrepreneur as well, a serial entrepreneur, a very impressive person with amazing life experiences. And I just, learned a lot of that kind of grit from him. And having been exposed to an international mindset early on, so I attended international school when I was young. And then, of course, I left Poland for university already right after high school, and I was quickly also surrounded by people from all kinds of different backgrounds, and that really exposes you to just a different mindset. And I think that's really important. I think today, especially, to expose the younger generation to just new ideas, new mindsets, put them out of their comfort zone, and trust, and then they'll figure it out, as I said before.
And let's follow up a bit more on your childhood.
I was free-spirited. I mean, I had a great childhood. I was free-spirited. I was curious. I loved to read. I think it was just very important, for me to have that independence. And sometimes, even today, as an adult person, I sometimes wonder, where I came from, because I remember, just doing things very early on, going abroad at the age of 11 to a summer school, and, all my friends just still being scared to cross the street by themselves.
You were more excited than scared.
And I was more excited, and I was ready for all kinds of new experiences. So yeah, it was a great time.
Were you doing any sports when you were small?
I was playing tennis a lot. Unfortunately, that's no longer in the cards since I got a knee injury skiing. I'm a skier. Yeah, I'm still a skier. That's something I never gave up on. But as a kid, I was playing tennis. I was spending a lot of time in the tennis club because my father was an avid tennis player. So it was also a way to, be together as a family.
Do you see any similarities between doing sports and building a company? Is there anything we can learn?
I never thought about it this way, but I think you're right. I mean, I think there is. I think there is a certain resilience and dedication, especially if you want to do sports at a certain level, whether it's, professional, semi-professional. And I think, from a more like a mindset perspective, especially if you're doing competitive sports, you cannot always win. You can still be an amazing athlete, but you will not win 100% of the time. And it's really about, how do you pick yourself up after that so-called, setback, and how do you keep on going? And I think as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of analogy to that because, obviously the journey is never straight up. It's very much, up and down. And I think, you just need to have that kind of sort of, I think it's really about like trust and faith, knowing that, ultimately, you're trying to do something meaningful and something impactful, and the journey might not be smooth, but you just have to keep on going.
So how do you do that? How do you handle setbacks? How do you pick yourself up? If you have any routines on that?
I've been incorporating a lot of there's a new word for that, the self-care, right?
Yeah.
The self-care routines. So I started meditating about 3 years ago. I do yoga. I start my morning by just grounding myself and breathing. So before I would, wake up and I would grab my phone right away and start scrolling, what my meetings are, what my to-do list is. And obviously that gets your body into like a more of a adrenaline spiked environment that, is not always most helpful. So it really is about finding those pauses, right? I mean, we talked about the pauses, and even during the day, sometimes when I have a moment where things just become too intensive, I'll just go for a walk. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I'll come back grounded and more focused. And I think it's important also, to give yourself permission to do those pauses. I think a lot of the times people are just very, the culture is really about go, 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 never stop. Somebody wise told me once, you need to slow down to go faster. And I really believe that. I've seen it also really work very well for me.
Can I ask you about the whole family setup? Because your husband is also an entrepreneur and you have 2 kids. Yeah. Teenager kids. So how do you handle those? Is that a lot of entrepreneurial talks at home? Your kids want to be entrepreneurs already and you help each other, or it sometimes can be exhausting to only discuss business at home. How is that in your family?
No, the kids are very much involved. I mean, we talk a lot about, the adventures of entrepreneurship at dinner table, and the kids are very curious. They ask lots of questions. So it's fun. And I think with my husband, we really found, we're both entrepreneurs and both kind of early stage startup entrepreneurs. So of course, our lives are very hectic. We're both currently fundraising at the moment, so you can just imagine. But we really found a great way to complement each other. He's also very active with the family, with the household, and so, we really share a lot of the responsibilities, so I think it's quite balanced from that perspective. And we are also each other's advisors. So I'm on the board of his company, he's on the board of my company. We each other's advisors because we come from very different backgrounds. He has a very strong commercial, strategic business development background. So I go to him for those kind of topics. He comes to me when it comes to hiring, products, communication, marketing strategy. So, we really complement each other and we give each other, great value add as well. But I think, it's also important to set boundaries, especially, between your personal and professional life. And so, we have some rules about, no phones at the dinner table, and obviously at some point, no business talk after 10 p.m. Because ultimately, you also want to maintain a healthy relationship and healthy family life as well.
How do you build company culture, and what is that for you?
I'm very passionate about this because I really believe, that I'm just an orchestra director. It's really about the team and what they can do. And so I spend a lot of time on hiring. And I really look at the fit. I really look at the mindset and the potential, fit for culture. It's a very hard one to test early. I'm still, I'm talking to different founders as well to get their ideas and tips on how to test for that early on during the interview process. One of the things, for example, that has worked really well is, especially for more like mid-level senior roles, we do a lot of, case study preparation, so we would ask, a head of marketing to put together a hypothetical business plan or like a marketing plan, or sales director to come up with like a 100-day strategy. And it's not really about getting, a tactical ideas from them. It's really about seeing how they think. And if they go above and beyond what will be expected in such an exercise, because that really shows, is the person really entrepreneurial? Is that person going to fight for the company? Is that person going to look for solutions no matter what? Or are they going to do, the checkbox exercise and be done with it? So, this really been a very successful tactic. And we've done it also with interns. A lot of our interns who initially joined the internship program have stayed with the company for several years, grown to, even high level roles because they were able to grow really fast. And they all went through like a very rigorous internship interview process, which, for them, it was also very surprising because, they weren't used to this. But I think it really, all these little things, really help to kind of define and instill the company culture. And that's something that I'm, thinking about very, very much. Also during this time of the year, so tomorrow we're going to have a company offsite. We're going to do some fun team building activities. We're going to have a dinner. We're going to do karaoke. It's going to be, of course, it's a fancy dress up, so we need to dress up in some silly cartoon character.
Oh, is it like a theme
Yeah.
party?
Just need to make it also, it's been a tough, maybe not tough, it's been intense couple of months. And people have been really pushing very hard. And I think it's just also about creating those opportunities also for them just to be comfortable and have fun and
Celebrate
be silly together.
milestones.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you describe your company culture, what words would you use then?
The culture is really about taking responsibility. So drive for results, but in a kind of very, taking responsibility, being proactive, not waiting to be told what to do, really anticipating what the needs might be. Collaboration, so no one knows everything. And it's very important to tap into the resources of your colleagues. The culture of feedback that we talked about. And also a culture of asking for help. This is very important to me because I think it shows really maturity, to be able to say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Like, here, let's sit around, let's figure it out together, and inviting other colleagues to do that. And that's been very, I think, asking for help has probably been one of the hardest skills for the team to adopt. You really want to prove to the world that, you got it.
What about you? Are you good at asking advice?
I hope so. I mean, I definitely do that quite a lot. I ask advice also my team members. Oftentimes, I'll be in a meeting and I would try to be the last one to speak. It's not always easy because especially if you have a very strong opinion already about what the outcome should be, but I really, really am learning the pausing and waiting to allow, the team members to arrive at the conclusion themselves. And I ask for feedback also and advice from other founders. I have a great community of founders, both male and female. I'm part of different groups and circles, and over time, when there has been situations that merited, like a proper structured advice, I would have done that.
Since you mentioned several times now that talking to other founders, having a community, do you think it is important for a founder to have supporters?
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is like the most fundamental need. I think especially in this period, both to have like the emotional and emotional support, and just like people who have done it too and maybe have faced similar challenges, but also tactical, and we have a group, we have a WhatsApp group of entrepreneurs also here in Rome, and sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, do you have a great tax accountant to recommend, or do you have a great lawyer, M&A lawyer, and if somebody can give you that kind of vetted recommendation, that means like it saves you a lot of the time on researching and validating yourself, and it allows you to go faster. So I think both are very critical. But I think also finding a like-minded community of people who share the same values, are able to be authentic, are able to be vulnerable, say it how it really is very powerful. I mean, I recently did a program with female founders, and I met some great female founders as part of the program, also VCs. And it just was a no filter sort of environment. We were able to just say it how it is. And that was extremely, extremely powerful.
How do you keep growing as a leader? Yeah, what are your plans? Keep doing the CEO role, or are you looking for now more market expansion, maybe switch into different roles?
So the first question, how do you keep on going? I think you just, you need to always find that little drive within you, and the belief that this is the right business, this is the right time, this is the right market, you've got the right team. And so for me, it's really about recommitting to this every single morning.
Yeah.
And as I said, there's some days there's a smooth sailing. Some days you have to do a bit more work because, you might have a setback. The partner you were chasing for months, maybe said no. Or the investor that you were hoping to bring on board said no. But I think many founders would agree. You need just one yes. You need 100 no's, but you need one yes, and it's really about getting to that yes. And so, I'm definitely not giving up. The plans. Well, I'm fundraising at the moment, so I'm raising my seed round, and the idea is to consolidate the Italian market, is to enlarge the team. I would love to bring on board a COO. I'm a sole founder, and sometimes the journey is very lonely if you're like a sole founder at that position. So I would love to bring on board like an experienced COO, actually also to help me go faster on some of the more operational aspects. And our ambition is to be pan-European, so the quicker we can capture the Italian market, the quicker we can get to Series A, and the quicker we can raise money and scale across Europe. So the ambition is definitely to be a pan-European company.
What advice would you give to your younger self back to the beginning of your career?
Wow. You know what? It's interesting because I recently did this exercise. Actually, I was asked to do this exercise to write myself a letter. I think the biggest message for me is about, being here and now. Not spending, I think it's important to, especially as a founder, of course, to do scenario analysis, to think about different plans, to understand, what the different hypothetical routes are. But then once you make a decision, just focus on the here and now, focus on the execution, focus on, having the right, mental agility to really be here and now, not let your mind wander too much into or the future or the past, because sometimes, also spending too much time rehashing your past decisions, it's helpful to a certain extent. But I think something that I've been learning over the years is really about, the famous power of now. And I think as a founder, it's very impactful.
Is it easy for you to do?
It's getting easier. I wouldn't say it's easy. It's getting easier, but it's a daily practice. And it's getting easier.
You have any tips on specifically how you do that?
I think, pausing and, meditation for me was very hard. When I started, it's very counterintuitive for me. I'm a go person. I was always, multitasking, doing 5 things, 10 things at the same time. And realizing also at some point that that's not necessarily the most productive way of accomplishing your objectives. And accepting that by slowing down, you can actually have more impact has been a great learning. So I think for me, what really worked is staying curious. So not committing, because when I started meditating in the beginning, I wanted to kind of commit to it. Of course, I'm an objective driven person. So of course I had to make okay, I'm going to meditate X hours a day. And it was really about, okay, let me be curious. Let me do it one day and see what happens. See how it changes my outlook. See how it changes my decision making. And then using, because I guess it comes back to always being a bit data driven. So I'm kind of applying that approach also into my personal life. So data driven in a sense, observing what happens and then using that insight to then continue, make a decision, adapt, pivot if needed be.
Sounds great. So the last question for today. Thinking about your kids, what advice would you give them when they grown up and about to make a decision where to go?
We're actually in a process because our son is now choosing high school. So there's a lot of decisions about, which profile, whether more scientific or linguistic. The world is changing. Their future professional lives are going to be so dynamic. I think what the skills they need to learn is curiosity. Just keep on digging, keep on exploring, be curious and work hard. Work hard at it because whatever you want to do, you can accomplish it, but you have to put in the work, you have to put in the commitment. So staying committed, not giving up at the first sign of, a setback, which I think, today's generation, sometimes some things have come too easy to them. And so as a result, they're not always prepared to deal with a setback. Understanding adversity is very strong, skill. And if they can learn that early on, and so, letting them fail. They need to learn from that too, not protecting them too much, letting them fail, letting them figure it out.
Great advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katerina.